Thanks for having me. Well, I was watching The Devil Wears Prada the other day, and while I was admiring the cute outfits and killer shoes, I was reminded why I resisted going into fashion for so long. It's snobby, it's superficial, and it's exploitive, and it only seems to be for really tall women who deprive themselves of carbs. Well, as a short woman who loves her pasta, I reject that fashion has to be this way. Quite to the contrary, I think that fashion can be used as a platform to promote positive social change. Fashion has been an integral part of shaping our art and our history throughout the centuries and continues to play an important role in our everyday lives. Our clothing helps us navigate the world. Think about it. How that new dress that fit like a glove, or that tailored suit that you wore to an interview made you feel. Or on the flip side, how dopey you felt having to wear grandma's knitted sweater with the snowmen and the reindeer on it to family get-togethers. This is part of a growing field of scientific research called enclosed cognition, not just how we think with our brains, but with our bodies. I want you to think about the clothing that you're wearing today. Do you know what fabric it's made from, or what country it's produced? Do you know who sewed your shirt, or the label in your undies, or how it got to the store that you bought it from? So let's go back to a time before Walmart, before polyester. The great empires of Rome and Egypt used purple as the imperial standard. It was very rare and expensive, and it took some 12,000 tiny shells from the Mediterranean to extract about a gram of dye. To wear a garment made with silk communicated to others that you were a person of means, as it was also very rare and had to be shipped by sea from China. For centuries, the clothing people wore had important social and economic implications. Artisans would take natural fabrics and custom-make clothing. So at what point did we begin to get so disconnected from this process? Well, let's fast forward to the latter part of the 20th century. With the rise of mass commercialization and production of our garments, or what we call ready-to-wear in the industry. Advertisements told women that these clothes were convenient and affordable and could be easily replaced as trends changed. Yet, this conspicuous consumption has gotten so pervasive that it's almost all we associate with the fashion we consume. The elusive high fashion of Milan and Paris is only for a select few. Most of us do our shopping at the mall or Target, with the focus not being so much on the artistry or the uniqueness or the fit of each piece, but on trendiness and, most importantly, cheapness. I want you to consider the real cost of producing a dress. It's a very involved, complex supply chain. Think about the farmers who grow the cotton, the weavers who weave the fabric, the pattern makers, the people who cut and sew and ship the fabric, and then people here who receive it, who have to retail it, merchandise it, brand it. Turns out to be a very expensive system if everyone along that supply chain is paid equitably. But given our obsessive cheapness, it turns out that a lot of people, especially in developing countries, make sacrifices so that we, the end consumer, can pay the least amount possible. How is that okay? For an alternative model, I take us to India. Artisan textiles in India have played a formative role in defining arts, culture, and the economy. Certain regions are world-renowned for certain techniques. You have beautiful silks from Varanasi, ikats from Orissa in the east, and the pashmina scarf from Kashmir in the north. These textiles are used in a myriad of ways for saris, for dowry, for home decoration, and they're also used to distinguish status and cultural affiliation. There was one village I visited in the west of India that has no written language. So they actually use embroidery to record their history and mark their cultural identity. These textiles are a living art. Yet millions of artisans today in India struggle to earn an income due to exploitation by middlemen and a lack of demand. Millions will flee from the villages to the cities to try to find work, and when they don't, they end up in slums, which are bursting at the seams. There are over 73 million people in India living in slums, in squalor. Over half the people in Mumbai live in slums, amidst open sewers and mountains of garbage. So I studied these issues when I was a student at UNC, studying human rights and anthropology. And I had this intense desire to travel, to throw myself out of my comfort zone and really experience something different. And India certainly offered that, and it really called to me. But I needed a way for UNC to pay for me to go, so I thought about a research project, and I thought about my trips to 10,000 villages at Cameron Village, which some of you might be familiar with. And I thought about some scarves I had seen there, and I remember seeing a picture of a woman, an artisan who had made the scarf, and there is a line that said she was able to feed her family by her orders. So I was really intrigued about this idea of how my purchase of that scarf would affect her life. Well, it turned out to be the perfect project for me. In 2006, I received some grants from UNC to study women's empowerment through fair trade. And I sat with women from all over India, from slums and from villages, and I watched them create beautiful handicrafts. Some of these women were taken out of school early, at the age of 12 or 13, to stay at home and help with cooking and cleaning. Others were former prostitutes, some were disabled, and some women had literally never left their homes without being accompanied by a man. For them, this was the first opportunity that they had to actually earn an income, to connect with other women, and no longer be at the mercy of men. These women were working for fair trade companies, and I want to give them a lot of credit. Fair trade has done a lot to boost artisan orders and connect them with the market, but they've only reached a niche market. Let's face it, there's a lot of frumpy designs out there, and while I might be a hippie at heart, I certainly don't want to dress like one. So I had my aha moments when I was in a village in Gujarat, and I was sitting with a young woman, Meena, who was block printing a tablecloth. And I thought, man, that would make a gorgeous dress. Well, now 6 years later, I've decided to create a label that celebrates fashion with meaning. So Symbology takes artisan fabrics from developing countries and fuses them with fashion-forward designs. This is a way of democratizing the artisan workforces by making their products commercially viable. We're taking informal crafts and making them part of the formal economy. This is not about charity, but about empowering artisans to earn their own income and use it as they see fit. I see this as a modern-day interpretation of the Khadi movement, which is a movement that Gandhi endorsed that promotes handicraft businesses as tools for cultural integrity and self-reliance. We are merely providing market access to these women and these artisans. These skills are passed down from generation to generation, so these are skills they already have. In turn, they're able to earn an income and maintain their culture. Well, I spent this summer visiting our 4 artisan groups to produce our first collection called Peacocks and Paisleys. So you see I have a dress with peacocks on it. And to give you an idea of this kind of fusion that we're doing, I have a slide here, and this is a stylized peacock pattern that I've adapted into a shift dress and used some colors that were good for fall. And to give you a better understanding of the full design process, I want to show you this video. Okay, so that's sort of the full line. So I start off with sketching the dress, and I work with the technical designer to make the prototype. Then I go and I visit our artisan groups, and we work to kind of create a fusion. This collection has a little bit of a pop art and mod feel to it. I've had the opportunity to visit artisan groups in Cambodia and the Philippines, and I've studied a lot about different cultures in Africa and Latin America and that use of textiles. And one very interesting thread that connects a lot of these cultures is the use of symbols and motifs that have meaning in them. And so I decided to name my line Symbology in honor of that tradition. Every dress that we make is symbolic. It tells a story. It connects women around the world, and it celebrates traditional art forms. There's also a very spiritual connection about something that is handcrafted, and that's something that we really embrace. There is a West African symbol called Sankofa that I think illustrates this idea really nicely. And it's about honoring our ancestry and looking back to our past and learning lessons from that so that we're able to move forward and reach our full potential. Well, I feel very honored and blessed to be able to combine my greatest passions, that for human rights and for fashion. I've come a long way from being a little girl and who wore her knee-high boots and sketched all the time and just wanted to be a fashion designer. And I went to 13 years of Catholic school, having to wear a uniform, which as a little fashionista was really a struggle. And I would do everything I could to try to work around it. And I remember all of like 4th and 5th grade, I wore these 5-inch platforms that may be the subject of a bit of ridicule and really pissed off the nuns, but it made me so happy. So I am really excited to be part of a growing movement that is trying to create a paradigm shift in the fashion industry. This is not Walmart calling itself sustainable. This is a real commitment to the people and the planet. So they say that you are what you eat. How about you are what you wear? One way to think about this is through the lens of the slow food movement, which encourages us to have an intimate understanding and consideration for where our food comes from and the people behind it. So likewise, sustainable fashion encourages a similar relationship and invites us to see our clothing purchases as investments in high-quality clothes that celebrate and honor the artistry and the craftsmanship that goes into making them. I believe that we all have a right to fashion that does not exploit others. Now, there didn't used to be a lot of options on the market available, but there are some really great brands, and even locally made. You've got brands like Judah Ross and Lumina Clothing here in Raleigh, and globally impactful brands like Aban and Symbology. The clothing we wear communicates a lot about us as individuals. Clinton Kelly from TLC's What Not to Wear says that the clothing we wear tells the rest of the world how we want to be treated. Well, I would posit that the clothing we wear tells others how we treat the rest of the world. Thank you very much.